Привет, товарищи. Добро пожаловать в 77-ю серию Culper's Canteen Cop. All right, thanks, Yuri. Thanks for that. Thanks for that introduction there. We're gonna jump into Ukraine and Russia a little bit later, but man, there is so much stuff going on, and Josh doesn't want to talk about old stuff. Case in point, Biden's speech, but man, I mean, that's why it'd be great to have time to do this podcast every day of the week because man, that was a doozy. And Roger, what did you think? What do you think about my prediction? First of all, I'll save my Ukraine hat for those of you on YouTube for later, and I'll put on a hat that has absolutely nothing to do with anything right now. So, Roger, what do you think about my prediction that Biden might get a bump from that speech? Because as I was watching the speech, he spoke. I mean, I thought the substance, I'm not talking about the substance, I'm talking about his delivery and performance for the first hour and 15 minutes, I thought was pretty solid. And I think that, no matter what, there's always going to be 15% of the people that approve of what he's doing, no matter what he does. But I think for a big majority of people who disapprove, it comes with that cognitive, his cognitive decline and, some of the other problems he's having not coming out and talking to the American people, like hiding from the press. So when he did the opposite of that, I was like, well, he's going to get a bump. And then as I dissect what he actually said in the speech, I'm like, man, if anybody was actually listening to the actual words he said when he was coherent, I don't know how he gets a bump. So do you think he'll get a bump or what from the speech?
So it was a pretty interesting observation because I think we all sat there as we were chatting and we were like, hey, he actually looks pretty good as far as his disposition, right? I mean, he seemed to be fairly coherent. He wasn't slurring as much. And it's kind of like, hey, man, somebody gave him like, a quad espresso, a couple Red Bulls, and a vitamin B12 shot. And I guess when you have, all month, to prepare for this one instance where I have an hour or 2 hours and he took his nap during the day, I'm sure, and slept in and all that stuff. I mean, you go out there and you give a 2-hour performance. I'd never really thought about it regarding polls until you mentioned it. And I got the same feeling you did after you said it. I was like, oh, you know what? I could actually see this. And I say this because it's like you said, 15% of the people, 20% of the people, it doesn't matter who the candidate is. If they fall within their party, they're going to approve of them, right? They're going to agree with what they do. And, it's funny. I've been going back and forth with this. Actually, I don't even know who he is, but he texted, hey, come out and support your local Democrats. And we've been going back and forth or whatever. But it's like no matter what you say or what you do or what he says or what he does, they're going to come out and support him. Just like on the GOP side, same thing happens both sides of the house. But I did think for those Democrats that may not necessarily approve of how he's handling things, it's like Josh being an FSU fan. Man, you look for anything, right? Or Carolina basketball. Last couple of games we've been blown out, but you look for anything. You look for any silver lining. Hey, man, you know what? Yeah, we may have lost, but it was a tough game. Our shooting was good. The ball just didn't fall our way or whatever. And I think there's a lot to be said for that. Where initially I expected, as you mentioned, I was like, I think he's going to get a pretty good bounce. Substance sucked. I mean, it was just horrible. And it was just continued, what we've seen in the last year, what he's stating versus, what reality is. Just it's night and day. I mean, you can't even make the stuff up anymore. I get a little tired of the angry man yelling and then the creepy whisper kind of back and forth. I'm not a big fan of that. But I think as far as his overall disposition, like I said, fairly coherent. He read from the teleprompter pretty well, stood there and took questions, right? Called around the room a little bit. And I think it was like an hour and 55 minutes or something like that total. So from a Democrat side, I do say, hey, maybe this guy gets a bump because, okay, at least he's up there. He looks good. He doesn't like he's going to kick the bucket or whatever. However, after that, and as you see play out for the last, or for the next day, 2 days, 3 days, and I think Josh said this, like, hey, when Al Sharpton craps on your speech, like you've got some major issues if you're a Democrat, okay? And he wasn't the only one. They had several folks and a lot of the pundits coming out, fact checking immediately. And a lot of them, I mean, like you watch Jake Tapper or, when I was on the road, I watch a lot of local news. And I think in one spot, I only had CNN. And it's actually pretty entertaining because they are trying so hard to keep a straight face when they bring on the Democratic strategists on. Of course, they spin everything and yada, yada, yada. And as they talk about, well, inflation, it's really not that bad, and the economy is really not that bad, and Ukraine, it's really not that bad. And they go down this road, and just to watch them with this straight face, I mean, they know it, dude. We all know it. So I guess initially I thought there was going to be a bump. I guess more to be seen as we see these polls roll out here in the next couple of weeks. But coming from what I'm hearing from the left, I mean, and what I've seen, there aren't too many people other than your diehards that you mentioned. There aren't too many people that are happy with this speech. Um, I don't even I think we were the only ones that I've heard, even on the left or the right, even talk about his disposition, incoherency, and this and that. I mean, everybody else seemed to be focused on the substance, which is kind of crazy, right? Because normally the left, hey man, he looked good, never mind what he said. But I don't know, Josh. I mean, you think, going back to Luke's question, I mean, what was your take of his speech? And I know it's old news by now, say you, but what would you think of his speech? And do you think he sees any kind of bounce in this thing over the next couple of weeks?
Well, I figured we could start by talking about the Rhodesian Bush Wars in the the mid late '70s and early '80s. Maybe we could finish this up with some executive outcome. So, Biden's speech, which what that was a week ago now. The content was the content. I think he looked alert for the first hour. I don't think he definitely started failing toward the end. I forget what question it was, what reporter, but he literally started sundowning in the middle of the answer. And that right there, you could see it and you knew it was happening. He had already been up there for an hour, probably an hour, 15 minutes. And you saw, man, it was glitching pretty hard upstairs for him. So I think that, I think he went a little past his limit. Um, as far as a bump in the polls, I think he'll get a bump in the polls just by coming out and being seen and actually answering a couple of questions. I think, he knew which reporters he was going to call on. He knew. I'm gonna go on a limb and say he knew which questions they were going to ask beforehand. He had already, he'd already had those. He already rehearsed his answers. For some, I don't believe he knew which questions, some of them were going to ask. Maybe like Peter Ducey. Because even Biden started when Peter asked him a question. He started. You've always asked me the nicest questions, very sarcastically, and I think and watching, watching afterwards, I think that was. They said Biden was unprepared for that question, and the way they said it, it wasn't. He was unprepared. He just couldn't answer it. He was unprepared, as in that was not the question he expected to field. And they kind of inferred that he had the questions beforehand. So, as far as his performance, for the first hour, yeah, he definitely looked like he had it somewhat together. The substance was absolutely terrible. When your press secretary has to scramble for clarifications before your press conference is even over, it probably means it did not go well. And Joe is good. He's much like Barack. He's very good when he's on the teleprompter. He's very bad when he's off the teleprompter and is allowed to freestyle it, because then you just don't know what Grandpa's going to say. And we'll get into the Ukraine Putin Russia piece later. But I think that was probably the biggest gaff out of that entire thing. Was our minor incursion. So I think he gets a bump in the polls just by being out there. You go back to his campaign; he'd always get a little bump in the polls whenever he come out of his basement and talk to 20 people sitting in their cars. He'd get a little bump, and then he'd hunker back down. I don't think you're going to see Joe Biden do that again for another 180 days, unless something catastrophic happens. I don't think you'll see it unless something catastrophic happens. I don't think you see it. I mean, he's gonna go back in. But I will say the media is not treating him like their darling anymore. I watched a clip with Chuck Todd, of all people. Chuck Todd absolutely drug Biden through the mud. Drug him through the mud on COVID response, on the economy, and on foreign relations. And to have that coming from Chuck Todd, absolutely insane. And then you had who was a Savannah, I forget her last name, Savannah Guthrie or something like that. She eviscerated Kamala Harris the morning after Biden's speech on Today. She asked some hard questions, and she reiterated multiple times. Kamala was trying to dance around an answer, and she was not having it. And Kamala gave her her nervous cackle, and she reiterated that I am the vice president of the United States, which anybody anybody who has to say that they're in charge, generally we all know what that translates to. And it was very uncomfortable. So I think there's a shift in the I think there's a little bit of a shift in the media. They're not going to come out carrying the Republican Party's water, but I think the honeymoon with Biden is over. There's a lot of people that are not happy, independents, and Democrats alike. They're just not happy with where the country's at. So I don't know, if Luke, if you kind of seen the same things, but to I don't know, to try and correct that, what does Biden need to do to turn this ship around? Because right now, man, it has hit the iceberg and the water's coming in, and I don't know what they can do to save this before the midterms.
Yeah. Well, the first thing, I think we kind of said this while he was making the speech with our little text group was, well, Ron Klain's days are obviously numbered, the chief of staff. I mean, that's always the first thing you do is fire the chief of staff. You lay the blame at the chief of staff's feet rather than the chief executive. So I would be really surprised if Ron Klain isn't gone within a month. I mean, I'd be surprised. Now, what can he do to turn around? I don't know. Go to war with Ukraine, and everybody's eyes are off the economy and the southern border and all this stuff. I don't know. I don't see a way out of this for him. The economy doesn't seem to be picking up the way a lot of people, even us to a point, expected. Maybe the inflation would start easing up. I don't see how it turns around before the midterms, but there's a lot of time before the midterms. I think that they are definitely asking this question because, the whole shift in comm strategy, which might have blown up in their face, at least part of it putting him out there for 2 straight hours. I think that was the beginning of a shift in comm strategy with respect to how they're going to approach COVID. Maybe, on the international stage, southern border, there was nothing about that in the press conference. There was nothing about crime in the press conference. I think that, yeah, I agree with you, Josh. I think that he definitely rehearsed. I think he definitely, and Roger, you said it too, he had a month to prepare, however long it was. He didn't hear from him. But I really think that either it didn't make it into the speech or maybe a reporter was supposed to ask about crime, because I think the new tagline he said 4 or 5 times during the press conference was something to the effect of people just want 3 squares on the table and to be safe. He said that 3 or 4 times, 3 squares on the table and to be safe. And to be safe is crime. But he never touched on it. No one asked about it, even though it's really bad, like everywhere. I mean, cops are getting killed left and right. I mean, the murder rates are skyrocketing where they shouldn't be. So I think he flubbed that. But Roger, I think you had a lot to say about or maybe not a lot, but you had something to say about the shift in comm strategy. I mean, and maybe we can dovetail this into kind of the COVID situation, the federal judge in Texas that struck down the federal mandate, some of the changes going on in the UK right now. Boris is in big trouble, Boris Johnson. But yeah, what do you see the shift in comm strategy? I mean, do you think that you agree that maybe the speech last week was the beginning of the change, and he actually is going to get out on the road, which will be very entertaining, by the way? But how do you see the change in comm strategy going? And also, if you could maybe give a more I don't know, a more articulate answer to Josh's question. Do you see how they could turn it around before the midterms?
At first, because Psaki went on Fox News, I think Josh sent out a text. He's like, holy shit, Psaki's on Fox News. I was like, get the hell out of here. I'm like, no way. So get on there and, pull it up or whatever. And I think if I remember correctly, I think it's the first time and the only time she's been on there, right, since the presidency. So to have her on there first thing in the morning, well, there's two sides of it. At first, I was like, yeah, there's definitely a shift in the comm strategy because you have Psaki out there. I think Dana Perino said it best. She's like, hey, immediately after any type of long presser, the administration immediately sends everybody out, right? They go out and they have to clarify. They have to do, massage a couple things or whatever. But then after, going back through the substance of Joe's speech, it's like, man, I don't know if it was a comm strategy change or the fact that it was so bad that you had to go out and correct everything, right? I mean, the minor incursion was just, that caught the news of the day, but I tell you, I'm pulling it up right here. I just pulled up CNN.com and you've got Daniel Dale. The headline, fact check, a look at Biden's first year and false claims. That's the big headline. False claims about his own past. He goes into that. False claims about Afghanistan. He goes into that. False claims about the economy. He goes into that. False claims about the COVID-19 pandemic. False claims and unscripted sightings. There was so much there that you had to clean up that, part of me says, okay, yeah, comms change. The other part is like, hey, man, they're having to go back and walk a lot of this stuff back or massage it or just, fight out, divert everybody's attention to something else. And when you talk about Ron Klain, I think his days are numbered. There were a lot of people that were calling for him to be fired back in November. I think Ron Klain I'm not a big Joe Biden fan anyway. We all know that he's got his 4 or 5 decades in government, so there's enough past performance there to know exactly what Joe was going to do. But Ron Klain did not help him. If anything, Ron Klain has pushed him farther to the left, farther to the progressives, the Bernie Sanders type. And I think from what I at least read, a lot of your moderate Democrats are like, hey, they really blame Ron Klain for that. Like, you told us you were going to be a moderate president, moderate left, and kind of go out there and govern, a little bit out the middle, much like what Bill Clinton did his second term, right? He definitely moved to the right. And so I think there was a lot of expectation that was going to happen. And then Ron Klain, I don't know if he was just trying to capitalize on the populist movement of like Trump and even Bernie Sanders, right? Feel the burn. And maybe he thought that, hey, we're going to try to capitalize on this because there is a grassroots movement for it. Well, one, I think that's over with. That's gone. And I think it's been gone for several years now. I don't think that ever comes back, at least not for Bernie Sanders. But I think it's just, miscalculation on Ron Klain's part. So, I do think that when I say change in comm strategy, I don't know what you really change. Are they going to really start going on Fox News? I doubt that. I don't even know if they really want to be out front because, like Josh said, what do you do to right this ship? There's a lot that's wrong. You talk about the crime thing. Their big answer right now with crime is, well, our policy's always been, we're just not going to get involved at the federal level. That's more of a local thing, right? Well, it's hard to do that when federally on a national level, you're calling for defund the police and, decriminalization of everything. So there's so much that's gone wrong. It's like, I don't even know. You almost have to play it just like Biden did with his campaign. Just not go out there. You just don't go out there. You don't address anything. You can send a couple of your deputies out there because, hell, they don't know anything. And it's easy to walk back any misstatements that they're going to make or whatever, right? But I don't know that you go out there until you have some good news. And when you look at, we talked about inflation a little bit, and you're right. Even by now, I was like, okay, some of this stuff is going to clean up. But it's so funny because it's like when you look at inflation, okay, obviously it's a global issue, it's a national issue. But, and Josh can talk about this with some of the empty shelves that he's got out in his neck of the woods. Some of those pictures were incredible, especially the ones that you were sending at the commissary out there. But it is very night and day around the country. When you look at folks, and I'm sure our listeners can relate to this. If you're back in one of the blue states, or you're back in on the East Coast and a more liberal wing of the area, or a more liberal area of the country, there's a lot that's shut down. There was a lot that was shut down that's been shut down over the past 2 years, and there's a lot of people still not back to work in those places, and that's where you're seeing empty shelves. Okay, now I get it. Supply chain is a global issue, right? Not local. But there was a lot of local, you have to have local folks stocking the shelves, coming to work every day, driving the trucks. Because I tell you, out here in Arizona, and I've said a couple times, we've been open. I mean, we closed down. It ended up being probably about 2 months. I think at the end of May was when they finally opened everything back up. We have full shelves and everything. I mean, there's no, panic at the grocery store. I mean, you had the toilet paper thing that hit everybody, but other than that, our shelves are open. When I came back from Georgia, we were trying to buy some little, some things for my daughter in her apartment. Man, we could not find a plastic trash can. I mean, we walked into a Walmart and it was empty. I was like, "You got to be. This is Walmart, right? I mean, this is insane." And then my wife walks out, and I'm just like, "That has got to be the ugliest looking trash can I've ever seen in my entire life." She's like, "It's the last one. This is it." And then you couple that with what Josh, the pictures that he sent. Maybe he can post some of that stuff up on the blogs or whatever. I mean, I think he said it. You can't even panic buy because there's nothing there left to buy. So anyway, when you talk about like inflation, when you talk about the border, we can touch on the COVID thing here in a minute. After we kick it to Josh, but I think your best play right now is you obviously come out if something good happens somewhere. But the way that's looking right now with Ukraine and Russia, as we get into that could be a little bit off. But I don't think you come back out, and I don't think you send your people out until something good happens. Because I mean, what do you talk about? Unless you just keep pushing the false narratives that Psaki and Biden, push that, hey, the reality is a lot different than what they're pushing. And I guess let me ask you this, Josh. I mean, at first, I'm obviously not a Psaki fan. I don't think all three of us, any one of us are. I was kind of making fun of Luke as he had his little hat on. I was like, "Hey, Jen, what's going on?" He's like, "This is Ukrainian, not Russian." It's like, pretty soon it'll all be the same. But when you look at Jen Psaki as a press secretary, I mean, how does she do her job? She knows she's full of shit, right? I mean, she knows she's full of shit. And she knows that what she is saying and what she's spewing is not in touch with reality and what's going on out there. So do you have any type of admiration for her as far as the job? Or maybe do you feel any kind of pity for Jen Psaki, knowing that she's got to get out there in front of the cameras? Because she really doesn't have a say in anything. Ron Klain's running everything. Some of the other cabinet members are running everything. But she really has no say as far as like actual policies or anything like that. I mean, do you feel sorry for her at all, having to kind of sit there and say, "Hey, I know this really sucks, but I'm going to go ahead and paint a different picture for you"? I mean, what's your thoughts on Jen Psaki?
No, I don't feel sorry for Peppermint Patty at all, because she voluntarily does that. Nobody's holding a gun to her head and making her, act as a press secretary for the Biden administration. So, and that goes for any press secretary of any administration. If you don't believe in what you're saying, you have the ability to say, "I'm not doing this." It's that simple. It's like working for, a company. Well, I don't believe in what this company's doing. I don't believe in this company's values, and I'm not going to be part of it. I mean,
Hey, Josh,
it's truly that simple.
don't you think it's funny how she projected her own life to the entire American people the other day with the kickboxing?
Oh my Lord, dude. That was like so, and so everybody knows that she is woefully out of touch. Right. And as most of the folks, as most administration folks are in any administration, they're just out of touch with the working people, with the real people. And, and so after, Biden, Biden's bills were defeated in the Senate, after they, the Senate failed to change the procedural rules to abolish the filibuster. Psaki tells people, I know you're frustrated. I know you're angry. Just go out this weekend, go to kickboxing class and have a margarita. And you're like, there are people who are barely putting food on the table. Guess what? They don't have disposable income to go to kickboxing class, Jen. They don't have that. They've got to go to 4 or 5 different grocery stores to find a gallon of milk. So yeah, that was probably the most ignorant, just complete lack of self-awareness comment that she's made. Well, probably in 48 hours. That was absolutely crazy. But, and they keep saying, she talking about the supply chain. When they come back and they say, well, it's a global issue. It's not our fault. It's what the U.S., it went into effect here, I think a week ago. The U.S. now requires any truck drivers entering the United States to be fully vaccinated, right? So there was a bunch of truckers in Canada who basically blocked the border crossings to protest that. And if people don't think that the US government's vaccine mandates on truck drivers impact the supply chain, well, you're dumb. Because what do you think? Dude, I'm telling you right now, truck drivers could bring this country to a standstill overnight if they shut down their 18 wheelers. People have no idea how much of our goods are put on the trucks to get wherever they needed to go. It's not trains and it's not planes. You think all your avocados from Mexico, you think they make it to Whole Foods on a 737? No. The snowman's bringing them in an 18 wheeler. That just so that you have Washington D.C.'s mayor. So Bowser put out, hey, when you go to the grocery store, only buy what you need. Why? Because they're short. Because shelves are empty in our nation's capital. In our nation's capital, shelves are empty. In our nation's capital, you now need a COVID vaccination card and an additional form of identification to go to an indoor establishment, to go sit inside a restaurant. But meanwhile, illegal aliens are using their CBP arrest warrants to board aircraft in the United States. So let that sink in for a minute. This is where we're at. And so, but they ran on COVID, man. I have a plan to defeat COVID. Joe Biden, October 2020. You take a look at California again with the truckers, right? So California passed some laws and they're still up and, still going back and forth. I don't know all the details on it, but it's impacting a lot of the trucking companies on whether truckers are independent contractors or they actually employees of, said trucking company. You go back and look, I think it's 80% of truck drivers are independent contractors. They own their rigs outright. They belong to them. And they basically 1099 it, for lack of a better term, with these big companies. And so they can work for company A one day and company B the next day. That's how they, it's just how they go. And I think California wanted to treat them. No, you're an employee of that company. You're more than 100 people, more than this, more than that. And you have to we mandate that you get vaccinated. So all of these draconian policies from the left on COVID are impacting our supply chain, which is already fragile to begin with. And then they stand up there, throw their hands in there and be like, it's a global issue. It's not our fault. We can't do anything about it, which is just it's a lie. It's a lie. It's not, it's not congruent with reality. And I think people are starting to see it. You have the march in DC today, in the mandates, down with, the anti-vax, mandates. I don't know how that went. I saw numbers that there was, tens of thousands up there. Who knows what the real number is. I'm sure the feds were out in their khaki pants and blue wind jacket, running around throwing up gang signs and, talking about white power, trying to, running basically the worst false flag operation anyone has ever seen. I could take a kid straight out of the schoolhouse at Fort Huachuca, and they could run a better false flag operation than the FBI is doing on these things. They are so bad, man. They are so bad. Did you guys see the video of like the 4 or 5 dudes?
Yeah, Patriot Front. Yeah, what got me? It was so fake. It's just ridiculous. And they think they're so smart about it. That's what gets me. They think they're so smart. They're like, oh, check this out. We'll leak this like it got out accidentally. Now, for those of you who haven't seen it, the Patriot Front is obviously a group of feds. Every one of them's in shape. Every single one of them are in shape, and they're not fat. Well, I'll put it to you this way. None of them are fat. There's your first little indicator right there, because I mean, I'm sure you got it in North Carolina, especially in Arizona. You see guys running around with a 3%er caps and all that stuff. They're usually a tad overweight and not in really great shape. But all of them are in shape. This is Patriot Front, and they're like, stop, supposedly a white supremacist, stop this steal, January 6th, QAnon type group. But this video that Josh is talking about, there's like there's a group of, I think, 5 or 6 Patriot Front dudes. They all have masks on. They're all wearing the same outfit, and they're talking about something about, election stolen, illegitimate government, and all this stuff. And then they shut off the tape, right? They shut off the recording, and all of them say, "Oh man, I'm glad that's over. Sieg Heil." And they all, they give the little Nazi salute, and I'm like, and here was my, I wouldn't. I'll stop short of saying I'm a trained observer and I see patterns and things like that. But none of them took their masks off. They all had masks on, to cover up their face. Well, as soon as the video, man, if I have to have a mask on, as soon as the video cuts off, I take that thing off because masks are uncomfortable. We've talked about that over and over. None of them took off their masks. They all kept their masks on and did their little fake, "Oh, Sieg Heil. Yeah, glad that this is who we really are." It's just such. Why is the FBI doing this? They're embarrassing themselves. I mean, Josh, you just typed something. Go ahead and tell us what you're thinking there, or it might be frozen. Is Josh frozen?
Oh no, we were talking about those dudes aren't fit. If you remember, take a look back to Michigan and take a look back to like Virginia. You remember the big pro Second Amendment rallies they had during the Trump administration, and especially the one in Richmond, where just thousands of folks showed up, carrying their guns. And remember that one guy who had that Barrett 50 cal, and people were like, "I can't believe this guy's got a 50 caliber. This is made to destroy tanks and planes and, blah, 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 blah." And you're like, that dude weighs 500 pounds. And you look at that group, right? So go back and you take a look at the photos from these rallies. Like literally 1 out of every 4 people are obese. Now, overlay that with the Patriot Front photos from DC, and then the clowns that showed up on the anniversary, the January 6th, 2021, January 6th, 2020, right? They showed up. And now look at that group of folks who showed up at Richmond, and then look at the group who, are all wearing khaki pants and blue jackets. Which, if you go back and you watch any episode of NCIS, what do they all wear? They all wear khaki pants and blue jackets, right? So that just lets you know they're feds. That's their uniform. And it's like, those dudes that they pictured, they shot the picture out in DC. They're all wearing the same watch. Man, where have we seen that before? Where have we seen all the fit guys who wear the same type of watch? I can't, it's just, dude is so bad. It's like, you guys are so bad at this. And at the same time, never mind the fact that the FBI is too, so busy focused on that they allowed a terrorist into the country who was known to MI5, who had visited Pakistan a dozen times between 2007 and 2020, who was, was known on social media for, anti-Semitic rants and violent threats. They let him into the country on a tourist visa, and, he took 4 people hostage at a synagogue out in Texas. So great job to the FBI. Good job, guys. You're on it. Just keep up the good work. Yeah, he had a visa waiver. It's fantastic.
Yeah, that was a big boner, dude. I mean, and getting a little off the rails a little bit. We didn't expect to talk about that one, but Roger. So I'm gonna put you on the spot here. Ray Epps, man. Who is he? What's his story?
Well, I guess, and I don't know if I didn't fact check this, but somebody posted something about his background working with the FBI and how he graduated. And I guess it goes back like years ago, where he'd, basically been with the FBI for 9 years, and, now is all of a sudden undercover. And there's a lot of conspiracy on whether, he's still with the FBI and starting this stuff, or he's not with the FBI. It just goes back to, it's like you said it, man. It's the lack of transparency, and it's just dirty, right? And when you have like a Ray Epps thing, I mean, why not come out and just address it? I mean, I get it. Okay, we can neither confirm nor deny and this and that, but there's obviously a large percentage of people that are like, hey, Ray Epps is an FBI guy, or was an FBI guy, or, now, there's always that cross between whether he's an informant or, UC or whatever. It's like, why not just come out and address it? And I think that's a lot of with, a lot of this stuff, I know I'm flipping gears here back and forth, switching gears back and forth, but it's like with Psaki and Biden and the administration. I mean, it's like, why don't you just come out and address this stuff for what it is, right? Hey guys, fucking inflation's out there. It sucks. We really need people to get back to work. We need our schools to be open. We need to have, these truckers carrying goods back and forth. We need people working in the restaurants. I mean, be in touch with reality, minus the the snarky which she's full of that, right? Margarita. It just takes you all the way back to the let them eat cake. But real quick, I want to ask, I guess, either one of you. So going back to Ron Klain, I don't expect him to be around much longer. I think the best case scenario for the Biden administration, and this is what I would do. This is what I would advise him to do. But so surely it probably won't happen. But at what point does he just start firing people? Right? Like, you have to. And maybe it's not a Biden thing. Maybe he brings in a new chief of staff and they just start firing people. Like, I got a couple. I was just, jotting notes down here at the top of my list. Pete Buttigieg. Yeah, dude, you're being replaced because you have failed miserably. Right? You talk about supply chain issues, because there are some serious supply chain issues that are going on because you have hundreds of thousands of connexes stuck at these damn ports. Because he was at home taking 3 months of paternity leave for medical recovery, right? Of course. When do you start firing Alejandro Mayorkas for what's going on down at the border? I mean, he could really, he would never convince a conservative, but when you look at your middle of the road Democrats, your actual registered Democrats, if he started firing people, he would probably get a lot of them on his side. Like, okay, he recognizes there's a problem. He recognizes these people that he put in these positions are not, doing their jobs right. They're not competent. And so he's firing them, trying to make a change. Anthony Blinken, why don't you fire him? I mean, Jake Sullivan, why don't you fire him? Austin, why don't you fire him? Now, I know not all of these people will be fired, and they do come to a point where they're over their year mark now, so people start leaving anyway as it is, because I think normally you don't see people stay too much longer than like 2 years for a lot of these positions. Even Psaki's already talking about she's going to be moving on or whatever. But I guess I'll throw it back to you, Luke. I mean, do you see any chance that maybe Ron Klain gets fired, they bring in a new chief of staff, and then you start seeing some shuffling, especially during the summertime, to where, hey, we're firing these guys because they suck, and we're putting other people in these positions that can do a better job than what they've already done?
Well, Josh may disagree with me on this, so I'll go get his opinion after I address it. I think Ron Klain is gone. He's not safe. He's a white male. It's easy. It's going to be hard to fire Pete Buttigieg because then the gays are going to hate you or whatever. It's the intersexual protected thing. Mayorkas has that Latinos, Latinx, whatever sounding last name. Down the list, obviously, nobody's going to fire the vice president. But Lloyd Austin, African American male. It's just that it's a bad look if they come out and fire somebody that's on their own side as part of that intersectional spectrum. So if you're a white male in Joe Biden's administration right now, a white straight male, I should say, you might be in trouble. That hideous transsexual thing that is a admiral, 4-star admiral or something, that person's not getting fired. I could see, if they convinced him to step down in order to do the right thing, but that's not what they're going to do. They're not interested in doing the right thing. They're interested in the optics and all that stuff. They're not interested in truly getting the train back on the track. They're more interested in the optics. I mean, Josh, correct me if you think I'm wrong. I mean, I do think that Ron Klain or any straight white male might be on the chopping block, but these other people on the scale of intersectionality, I think they're safe for now, unless they're convinced to resign.
No, I 100% agree with you on that. I think Ron Klain's you're right. Ron Klain's the easy answer. But there's no way that they can Mayor Pete, Mayorkas, the 4-star.
If I was Ron Klain right now, I'd say I identify as a female, or I'd just be like, I'm gay.
That Yeah, he had. I mean, he would have to. But the word on the street. So I was reading a couple articles. Politico did an article on Ron Klain here about a week ago, and it was actually before. It was before Biden's 2-hour presser, and already, there were rumblings before then that Ron Klain's just he is not working out. A lot of the supposedly, according to Politico, a lot of the inside White House staff. One, they're saying that Ron Klain, he's demanding, he's difficult to work for, and I would imagine any White House chief of staff, is probably going to be very demanding. I mean, that just comes with the nature of the job. But they're saying he's very inaccessible, and when a lot of these decisions need to be made and things need to be done, Ron Klain disappears. So I don't know if Ron Klain's like a sergeant major in a previous life or something like that, but he's not even popular within his own staff. So there's nobody that's gonna jump on that grenade for him. And once they decide somebody's got to go, and like you said, and Roger said, it's come back to where a lot of folks thought Biden was going to govern from the center. He was going to be a lot more amenable to to ideas than he has turned out to be. I mean, anybody who really paid attention, you only had 48 years of empirical data to to work with to figure out how Biden was going to govern. But
yeah, I was going to say none of us three, none of the three of us thought that.
No, because I could read and do due diligence. I knew that wasn't going to happen. And there's no, it's the same thing as I don't see how they can Kamala. Widely unpopular, hugely unpopular, but it would be the death knell for that party to can Kamala in favor of anybody but Michelle Obama. That's the only one they can do to get away with, because you can't fire the black chick. You just can't do it and not survive as a party. You
okay,
would be
so
crucified.
Yeah, now that I'm thinking about it, we said we were going to do this. If I don't say it now, it's never going to get done. So let's shift gears slightly. I am willing to make a bet with both of y'all. Maybe I shouldn't do this. No, I'll do it. My bet is this: the nominee for the Democrat Party in 2024 will be female. It will be female. So do y'all want to take me up on that bet? No takers.
I mean,
well, how do you get away from? And I actually had this as part of the notes because Hillary's popped her head up again, and I'm like, God, please just go away. But Josh, how do you get away from? Because, dude, we all know, right? Joe is not running in 2024. Come on. So how do you get away from not selecting Kamala, even though she's incompetent, can't win, yada, yada, yada? But how do you get away as a Democratic Party not having her selected as your primary candidate? I mean, I get it. You have to go through a caucus and yada, yada, primaries or whatever. But, I mean, she's got to be the one that you throw your weight behind, right? If you're the Democratic Party, how do you move away from that?
I don't see. I don't know. I don't see how they do it unless they put their weight behind Michelle Obama. If there is no way,
she ain't running.
Yeah, I don't know that she will or not. I saw the news that the rumor rather that Hillary has established an exploratory committee. To take a look at 2024. It's
like a bad case of syphilis, man. Just like will not go away.
Here's the thing, I mean, you okay, that's fine. You if you think your popularity and your likability has increased since 2016, Hillary, I got something to tell you. It hasn't. Everybody still hates you, and you're gonna lose like you did in 2016. So that's just, that's as easy as it is.
She's gambling that if she's gonna throw her hat in the ring, she's definitely. First of all, the cognitive dissonance and the lack of self-awareness with her is just unbelievable. She doesn't understand that everybody hates her. She does not understand that. So I think she's banking on Trump running and being like, well, they know Trump now and they hate him now more than and they all love me anyway. So I'll do round 2 with Trump. But man, I'm telling you, dude, I don't know if I don't know if I believe that Michelle Obama won't run. I think the odds are against it. But man, my bet is safe, dude. My bet is safe. Female candidate, you got, first of all, Kamala, she's female. Michelle Obama, Amy Klobuchar, Pocahontas, Oprah. I mean, those dark horse, Oprah, Tulsi Gabbard, Hillary Clinton, man. These are all, I didn't say they're attractive females, but they are females.
So
Well, never mind.
first off, how dare you to assume their gender? How dare you? But no, I don't. So Tulsi's out. Tulsi attacked the matriarch, during the party. Like she's out. It's and then so is Pocahontas. She never won a primary. I mean, even during during the 2016 primary, she drew not even 1% of the vote. Like she
more than Kamala.
Well, yeah, she drew more than Kamala. I mean, Kamala only got to where she's at by an old white guy gave her a job, which was pretty. I mean, I don't know, man. That's a little bit of, you say you hate old white men. They're the biggest threat to the country, and then you take a job from an old white guy. Anyway, so Michelle Obama may run, but I think she's the only one that can run that that they can get behind without turning off a very, very large amount of their base. And I've said it before, and I'll say it again. If Trump runs, he splits the base, and the Democrats win. Because Ron DeSantis is running. So, but yeah, man. I don't see
Trump.
how.
Trump's running, man. He's running. Man, there's no doubt he's running.
I wish he would just play kingmaker, because he could absolutely do that, dude. And he could probably run the table, across the states and local elections, dude. He could crush it.
And I'm sure, I'm saying he's running, barring, if everything remains the same as it is right now, which it won't, but if it does, Trump, I think in his mind, he is 100% running. I mean, Roger, so let me ask you, Michelle Obama, why? I mean, come on, she's got to know. She and Obama are self-aware, I would say. Their heads are in the clouds, they're stuck up, but they're self-aware. She's got to know that if she runs, she would win. So it's like, why wouldn't she? You say she won't. It's not that I don't believe you, but why do you say she won't run?
I don't think she has a passion for it, and I agree with you 100% that if she ran, she would probably win. I mean, there's obviously a lot that gets unpacked with that, but she would win. She'd at least be the Democratic nominee, right? And she would do probably very well on the national level. But even as her time as the first lady, and I get it, a lot of times they don't play huge roles, but she's just not into politics, man. She's already got that $400K check coming in every year anyway. They're millionaires now because of all the books and all that crap. She sees, I mean, Barry got old with his 8 years in the White House, and she's no spring chicken. I just don't, there's no reason for her to do it. Unlike, Hillary, who has a passion for politics and government. Michelle doesn't. I mean, she's never run for any other office or anything else. So I just don't think it's, she might get a big push from the left to run. I don't think she really wants to. And to be honest with you, I don't think that Barry wants her to run. Not because, she can or can't win or whatever. He's like, do you really want to be back in that, in that realm again? I mean, it's a special kind of, you talk about drain the swamp, man. It's a special type of scum that lives in those circles that many years. And that's Democrat, Republican. I mean, to sit there, it's like, why would you put yourself through that for that many years? And that's the one thing with Trump, agreeing with Josh as we've all kind of gone back and forth. It'd be kind of nice to see him play the, let me go ahead and anoint those that should win. Because I think Glenn Youngkin out in Virginia, he had the perfect plan, right? I'm going to run on Trump's policies. I'm going to, run on what made him successful as far as those policies and what they were. But hey, I'm not going to call everybody a dickhead, right? I'm not necessarily going to give everybody the middle finger and F the world, and maybe I'm going to be a little bit easier. My corners aren't going to be so sharp. And I think if the Republican plays it right, and at first we've got 2022 coming up, so even 2024 is way out there. But if the Republicans play it right, you say, hey, look, we really need to play, use that playbook. And I think you can invoke some of Trump's policies and things that he stands for, but you don't necessarily have to have Trump come to your rally. They just had the one out here in Arizona. They had it out there by where they hold Country Thunder, and I think Josh was saying that the energy's there, man. The energy's there, and as Luke found out, we have some crazy politicians out here. We've got some folks that are really off the reservation, right? And he's already endorsing like Carrie Lake to be the governor, and Carrie Lake's got her own challenges out there, but it's that'll be the other thing too. I am me personally. I'm a Trump guy. I love his policies. I think he was successful. I don't really give a shit if people like him or not, as far as personally, personality wise. Like I said, I'd never bring him over, to babysit my kids or whatever. But you got to move beyond the steal. The 2020 thing, dude, that's over. It's gone. I am tired of hearing about it. I don't care about it. It's right up there with the January 6th stuff. Arizona's still doing the audits, and I'm like, who cares? Just move forward. I mean, I get it. There's some oversight and there's some corrections that have to be made. I'm more concerned with what went on in Pennsylvania with the Pennsylvania State Supreme Court saying, no, we're going to go ahead and just change voting dates, and extend the hours and this and that. I don't, legislatively, I don't think they have that power, but it's that stuff's old, man. It's like I'm tired of hearing about that. I'm looking at 2022 and 2024, and I think when they looked at Mitch McConnell, or they asked him, hey, the agenda and this and that, and he simply said, got to win first. And that's very true. So I don't know, Josh, going back to the Michelle Obama thing, I mean, do you think she has any reason to run? And do you think, let's say she doesn't, but let's say she doesn't have that passion, do you think the Democratic base can actually go to her? Because this can be compelling, right? Hey, look, Michelle, you're our only chance. You're our only hope. So, everything Barry did for 8 years, and Joe's, doing his best to tank that stuff. And the only way we can carry forward is for you, especially as a party and for your country, is to be the Democratic nominee. I mean, do you think they're able to compel her to throw her name in the hat?
I do. Because I think if they, like you said, if they couch it right, I think if they play on hers and Barack's narcissism, I think they take it. And especially if, let's say it is, Trump for, the Republican ticket, if he's the nominee, I think they jump in there, yeah. No, I think it's in the realm of possibility. I agree with Luke. And plus, I think you have to, you add back on, because you think about, and not that either party is worried about its own hypocrisy, or what they said yesterday, let alone what they said, 4, 6, 8 years ago. But if you replace Kamala Harris with Hillary Clinton, if you replace Kamala Harris, let's say Bernie Sanders, right? I don't know what other person would be an actual electable individual for the Democratic Party. Like, I don't know. Like, who would it be? But you replace her with, Clinton, you replace her with Bernie Sanders, you replace her with, let's say Mayor Pete. You are going to have to explain to your voter base why you are picking a white person over the black female. And that is not a conversation that they are ready to have with their voter base. And that is not a conversation that they're going to want to have in an election year. That is just, it's just not. So Kamala Harris, I'm sorry, Michelle Obama, she's the only one that they could actually replace Kamala with, to where that, they wouldn't have to have that conversation. Anybody else, they're going to have that conversation. And it's going to be their own base that calls them out. It's going to be, whatever Charlemagne and, the likes of them, they are going to be pissed. They're going to ask for answers. Hey, I'm curious. I wonder if Biden ever called Ice Cube. You guys know? Do they ever call Ice Cube back?
I don't think he ever had that meeting with him. No.
It's too bad, man. I like Ice Cube.
Well, people were speaking of Ice Cube, NWA. God, this is really going on. Josh wants to talk about Russia and Ukraine so bad. So I don't know. I got called out. I got dogpiled the other day because I mistakenly made a post of Facebook. I'm hardly ever on there anymore. But I said, hey, you know what? I'm looking forward to the Super Bowl halftime show for the first time since Prince. And man, dogpile. Oh my God. well, you commie like the NFL. And I was like, hey, it's Dr. Dre and Snoop. Those are liberals. I don't care. I love their music, man. Dun, 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 dun. Man, come on. That pumps me up, man. Come on. Ain't nothing but a G thing. I hope, obviously they won't be cussing at the Super Bowl halftime, but I am looking forward. I'm not a huge fan of Mary J. Blige. I think she's talented, but man, I'm excited about Snoop Dogg and Dr. Dre. I might just watch the halftime show and not the Super Bowl. If Kansas City makes it, I'll watch because Patrick Mahomes. I might watch the greatest. I hate to say it, but I might watch the greatest quarterback that's ever lived if he makes it to the Super Bowl, Tom Brady. But anyway, I got dogpiled for that, Roger. I mean, I know your Steelers are out, so you don't have to watch the NFL anymore. But yeah,
It's just like with music and video games and anything else. Is like you get into I'm on the side of Sean Hannity with this thing when you get into like the cancel culture and this and that. Not that I say you should sit here and write a check to the CCP, because I get it with a lot of this stuff, but you have to draw a line somewhere, because otherwise you won't be doing anything. You'd be sitting on the floor, right? Not watching any TV, not sitting in any chairs, you literally would have nothing. So you have to draw the line somewhere. I can say with the NFL, well, NBA, and basketball has always been my favorite sport, but NBA, I haven't watched a single game in 2 years. NFL, I watch my Steelers if I can catch them, but I don't necessarily go out of my way anymore. Like before all of this stuff, Sundays in our house, it was football. We got up in the morning, I do my chores or whatever. We do a little bit of yard work, and then we cook some, whether it's ribs or whatever, and it was football all day, right? And then you would do, and yeah, it's a good line there. Your line is the Olympics in China. Yeah, man, there's so much stuff to unpack there. It's like, in what world does this make sense? Right? Like, in what world did they actually agree to have the Olympics in China? It's not even. You got the argument with the athletes, and then you got the we're not sending any diplomats over there, and then China's like, well, you weren't invited anyway, So it's like, hey, as athletes, I would actually like to see some of the athletes take a stand and be like, hey, man, I'm just not going over there. You sit here and you claim, oh, I'm from human rights and this and that, and you boycott everything. And for those that are activists, right, that go out there and actively, hey, you can't be supporting this and that. But at the same time, LeBron James, yeah, I'm talking to you. You turn right back around and you support, China and their actions, which I think are after the Olympics, dude. I think it's going to be game time, because I think I guess maybe this is how we segue into the Ukraine. You can put your hat on there, Jen. When you look at China and what's happening here with the Olympics, once that ends, well, obviously the road in Ukraine and Russia, that's going to be a little bit more paved, so we'll kind of see what's going on there. But if there is no action or activity or a response from the U.S. Other than just, hey, we're going to sanction you, don't do this, type thing. That's going to embolden China. That's probably the biggest fallout, or one of the biggest fallouts. I get it. You got the Black Sea and control the waterways and this and that. But I just think when you look at the global effort anyway, and just kind of stability and who gets away with what, and who can do what, with this move that Russia's doing with Ukraine, and I'll turn it over to Josh so he can kind of kick it off there. But more importantly than anything, I think it emboldens China. They're like, hey, man, you guys didn't do jack. You did absolutely nothing. Matter of fact, weren't even invited to the table, right, to have the conversation, to develop other actions that weren't so unilateral or other responses. But, I think China sits back and says, hey, you know what? They took Crimea. Now there's talks about, installing a pro-Russian government in Kiev. So at what point does China say, hey, screw this, Taiwan? They're essentially already China anyway, but at what point do they just go in and actually take it? So, Josh, once you get everybody up to speed on Ukraine, Russia, why we should care, what's happening over there, and kick it off for us.
So real quick on the China piece, you're absolutely right. The world is watching. The world was watching when we left Afghanistan and how we left Afghanistan. And the world continues to watch. How we are going to handle, or how we're handling, the current crisis in the Ukraine. It's important to note that the Biden administration, one of the first things you want to do when, the crisis starts developing in a country, especially for the United States, is, okay, what's our stance? You reach out to your ambassador to that country, and it's like, okay, man, these are your talking points. This is what you're doing. This is this is what we're doing. Well, the U.S. doesn't have an ambassador for the Ukraine. We never appointed one with the new administration after we fired the old one. So right now, the United States does not have an ambassador to Ukraine. Which is really important when you tell the entire world what your reaction may be to a Russian invasion. Well, it depends. I mean, is it going to be an invasion? Or is it just a minor incursion? I mean, that's really not. We'll figure out what we will and won't do. After that, one of the things that helps you, reassure that that country's leader and its citizens is you get your ambassador, and your ambassador's out there on the front handing out lollipops and shaking hands and kissing babies, but yeah, so we don't have an ambassador to Ukraine because we failed to appoint one for the new administration, which to me is absolutely insane. So Biden's gaffe during his 2-hour marathon presser, I mean, it sent shockwaves through Eastern Europe. Zelensky, president of Ukraine, he tweeted out a response to it, and I don't know if Biden ever reached out to him, but I know 48 hours after it happened, Biden had still not reached out, for a phone call with the with the Ukrainian president after he basically gave Putin the green light to conduct an incursion into Ukraine, which again, the foreign policy piece, we've said it, we've talked about it a lot on this show. His foreign policy is terrible. It's always been terrible. Bob Gates, most famously said it. Joe Biden's been wrong on every foreign policy issue for the last 40 years. That was highlighted in Afghanistan with 13 dead service members. And, now, as of 48 hours ago, the Ukraine has now, they've told everybody to start evacuate all non-essential embassy personnel out of Ukraine. So in less, 6 months' time, we've had to evacuate 2 embassies. Between 2016 and 2020, we evacuated absolutely 0 embassies. We're a year into the Biden administration, and we've evacuated 2. So America is back, baby. So right now where we stand on Ukraine, the last I saw, Russia has pushed fighters into the capital of Belarus, which anybody, take a look at the map. Belarus sits on the northern borders of Ukraine, a lot closer to Kiev than where Russia is. And there's a lot, you take a look, anybody can go out and follow these apps, Flight Radar 24. There's even maritime apps where you can see, and track ships, and you can watch a lot of ISR activity, not only in the Black Sea, but also up north near the Baltics. A lot of Europe is very, very anxious and uneasy right now on what's going to happen. I believe it's and Luke, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's France, Germany, Ukraine, and Russia are all getting together for a summit. They're in Europe to try and work this out. Notably absent is the United States. I don't know if that was I don't know if it was because we were not invited or we got invited and declined. Germany's chancellor declined a call from Biden to discuss Ukraine. Germany has turned around and stopped Estonia from sending artillery pieces to Ukraine. Apparently those were German-made artillery pieces. So you have a NATO member telling another NATO member they can't send, pieces of lethal aid to the Ukraine. So there's obviously a division in NATO on how we're handling this. And there's been some rumblings anyway. And so now I'm going to kick a question over to Luke here in a second. So it's a mess right now. There's no clear foreign policy. Blinken went over. I don't know if did you guys see the picture with Blinken and what's his name from Russia shaking hands? That was, you remember that picture? Remember the meme from The Office where it's got the young Steve Carell, he's standing there and he's like, like this exact, it was the first thing that came to my mind when I saw that. It is the most awkward. I'll put it up in a blog on our website. It is the most awkward photo that I've seen between two world leaders in a very, very long time. Like, it is bad. And we talked about Blinken and his background before, on this show. He's out of his depth, with this. Putin and the rest of Europe are dancing circles around him. He does it. He is so out of his depth. So, but I'll ask you, Luke, I'll ask you this. So it happened in 2014, when the U.S. wasn't at the table for the talks. Do you think that the U.S. needs to be at the table for these talks, or is this something we should step back and let Europe work this out themselves if they can without our involvement?
That's a good question, man, because there's a lot to use Roger's phrase, a lot to unpack there. Yeah, it's called the Normandy format. They did this something similar back when Russia rolled into Crimea and the Donbass back in 2014. So they're trying to do a repeat of that. U.S. wasn't part of that conference back then, and like you said, Josh, that doesn't. It was a bad idea, or it looked bad then. It looks bad now. I mean, I agree. But my retort to Josh when he said, it wasn't a retort, it was just an observation. It's like, well, this is the world we live in now. This has been coming a long time since, basically the Obama administration taking I don't know if it's intentional or not. I think it is intentional to a point, but taking a step back from the world stage, stop being a world leader, not being isolationist, just a series of bad foreign policy decisions since the Obama administration. And, I think that Europe has genuine concern, especially France, so much to unpack, that the U.S. is not going to make the right decisions, not going to land on the right side, is not going to follow through, because how often has that happened over the years? And it wasn't like from the rest of the world. Well, a lot of the Western European world's mindset, it wasn't any better under Trump. It was worse, so on and so forth. So our foreign policy has just disintegrated in the eyes of a lot of the world since the Obama administration, and I'm including the Obama administration in that. So we've had this discussion before. I can't remember if we had it on the podcast or not, where we kind of went back and forth, where I'm of the mind now, let Europe handle it. And Josh has got a fair point. It's like, well, eventually, if we just let Europe handle it, we'll be over there again in another war on that continent. And I'm like, yeah, we will. Because that's just, I've never believed in the European Union. Since I learned what the European Union was when I started to pay attention to the global stage, not a globalist, on the global stage, I knew the European Union wasn't going to work, especially after living there. So Europe is a mess. It always will be. And that Normandy conference, I think, or the Normandy format where those four nations are going to sit down together, I think is going to be very, very interesting to see. I'm going to try to track how that goes, because I could see France taking the side of Ukraine, and I could see Germany taking the side of Russia for very obvious reasons, and Germany and Russia going head to head. I'm sorry, Germany and France going head to head, which is not good. Historically, in recorded history, it's never been good when France, or the people that live in that area, the Gaelic people, go against the Germanic people. It's always been a disaster. So France has always seen itself as a foil to U.S. hegemony throughout the world. I think they're delusional a lot of times, but I think France sees this as their big chance to replace the U.S. and side with Ukraine territorial integrity and all that stuff. And France is also further away from Ukraine. France is also less dependent on Russia for energy than Germany is. France has, I think, the most nuclear reactors, I want to say, per capita in the world. I don't know if they have more numbers wise, but they rely heavily on nuclear power. Whereas Germany, I mean, remember, Nord Stream 2 is not finished yet. It's not done yet. So Germany knows right now, without Nord Stream 2, they are dependent on Russia liquid natural gas to, heat homes throughout Germany. Very dependent on that. If Russia turns off the spigot, Germany's in big trouble. And once Nord Stream 2 is completed, man, they're in big trouble. So it's like, to return to what you're saying, Josh, it's like, well, how do we fix that? I mean, Trump's probably not going to get elected again. I think his foreign policy was good. That's no secret. Um, I just don't see how we fix the problems in Europe. I mean, let them handle it. That's the way I feel about it. And I know, Josh, you're going to have a lot more to say on that. I think we agree on more than we disagree, and eventually we're going to have to go fix their mess or not. But I'm just tired of it, man. I think the American people are tired of war. And man, make no mistake, going to war, going to a hot war with Russia, just take nukes out of it, it would be a disaster for everyone involved. And I got more to say, but I'll kick it to Roger. I mean, Roger, you want to dovetail on anything I said there as far as should we let Europe handle it? How should we get involved other than lethal aid? I got no problem with lethal aid going to Ukraine. What do you think?
Well, I think the question comes down to, you know, do you continue to kick the can down the road knowing that it's a case-by-case basis? Like, how much do you want to get involved in the defense of the Ukraine? Do you want to do it to the point where you send troops over there? Do you do it where it's just lethal aid? Do you do some type of, FID stand-up type of thing? Or, what's, it just depends on how much, where is that line at? And it's tough because you can't, you can throw a bunch of countries out there and throw them in the same predicament. And you have to weigh that and say, okay, again, like we started off with the whole China thing. Okay, what does this do for the world stage? Because it's not just about let the Europeans handle it themselves, because they won't. I think we've seen, and we've said this several times, you hit it on the head with Germany and the energy and gas and this and that. It's, we've been saying it on this podcast for at least a year. Germany has become closer and closer to Russia, and a lot of these places, a lot of these states that rely on them for energy, especially when the winter comes around, guess what? I mean, if they're the ones who are providing 70% of your energy, you're kind of beholden to them, right? So, not only are you looking at what's going to happen right there in Europe, but I think a lot of those countries are it's no big secret. They are actively, improving or increasing that relationship with Russia, mainly because of the energy piece. The other piece of that is a lot of these folks, a lot of these countries. Hey, look, the world needs a leader, and if we don't fail to lead, and again, we can sit here and debate back and forth over, what do you do? How much do you just do lethal aid? Do you just do, threaten, sanctions? Right now, it doesn't look like lethal aid or sanctions or the threat of sanctions is scaring Putin at all. I think it also goes back to, hey, what's Putin's goal and what's Russia's goal? Is it to actually install another government, pro-Russian government in Ukraine, or is it to actually take it, right? And then what type of action do what kind of precedent do you set? And, on the world stage, when you're going to have this big China problem with Taiwan coming up, and not just Taiwan, okay, everything, everywhere. So, how much of that do you want to preempt? How much of that do you want to get involved in? I think the biggest problem is we're just kind of like it's like the Mr. Miyagi, right? Walk left side of the road, walk right side of the road. You can't walk down the middle. You get hit by a car, right? I mean, you got to do something. And I think that was with the Trump thing. There is some peace through strength, right? I think when it comes to foreign policy, I mean, just overarching and very broad, but very similar to Reagan's. Hey man, peace through strength. You got to punch some people in the mouth every now and then people start to respect you. Believe me, when we shook the world and schwacked Soleimani, I mean, dude, that sent some waves, right? That sent some stuff across the. I was like, holy cow! And it's not just Germany, France, Ukraine. I mean, you look at what's going on around the world. You see, with Iran, you see North Korea again, right? North Korea firing more missiles over there. Now they're talking about all the hypersonic, missiles and this. Dude, a lot of that stuff we didn't have for a couple of years. Not to say that they just stopped. We get it. I mean, Iran wasn't like, okay, we're stopping everything during the Trump years. That didn't happen. But I would say that people walked a little bit easier because you just weren't sure. They just weren't sure. And especially when we, schwacked Soleimani, I mean, that sent some waves around the world. Like, hey, man, if you F with us, you kill Americans, you put Americans or American interests in harm's way, we're going to punch you in the face. I don't know with Ukraine, and I guess I'll throw this to Josh. I mean, I think we might be past that. I think that should have happened, a long time ago. I think we're way beyond that now. I don't think that we send troops over there, right? I think they continued the lethal aid. They were like, it's funny because CNN and the Dems and all the talking points. Oh, 90 million tons of lethal aid. It's like, yeah, okay, again, throw out a big number. Reality, what you're seeing on the ground is a lot different than what they're reporting and what's actually happening. But I mean, I think are we beyond the point of deterrence? They keep throwing out economic sanctions. Clearly, Putin don't give a shit about the economic sanctions. And I think even a couple other countries came out, we're going to have some economics. Like, hey, their economies have been crap for quite a while now. So I think, we might be beyond that. Do you think we do anything more beyond lethal aid? And if we do, I mean, what's the next step? Or do you just hands off and say, hey, Europe, take care of your problem?
So I certainly don't. I do not advocate putting troops on the ground in Ukraine. I think that's. I think right now, I think that's absolutely crazy. We have no treaties with Ukraine. There is no formal, there is nothing formal with Ukraine that says, hey, we have to defend them. Luke, you got something? No,
No, I was just gonna. No, there was one security. It's not a treaty, and I can't remember where it was signed. I can't remember the title of the treaty, but basically, the agreement, and there's no
Security
binding
cooperation
agreement. Yeah, because they gave up all their nukes in exchange for the U.S. and a few countries saying, "Okay, well, we got your back," basically. But that's not a binding treaty. So sorry,
Right.
sorry.
No. That's good it's good to know. So we have no binding treaty, as Luke points out, with them. So and again, there's no national interest. It's not of the vital security of the United States, that we defend the Ukraine with troops. I'm all for shipping them lethal aid. I think we should send them. I think we should send them javelins. Until the cows come home. Russia has a lot of armor, and javelins love armor. Uh, so whether we send them javelins and we send them our updated versions. I don't even know what they're called these days. Of Stingers. We killed a lot of Russians. In Afghanistan with Stinger missiles, and we can kill a lot of Russians in the Ukraine. By sending them lethal aid. Britain has been pushing Ukraine lethal aid like crazy over the last week. So what Luke was talking about, the Budapest Memorandum, December of '94, Ukraine, Russia, Britain, United States. The memorandum provide Ukraine with security assurance and connection with an accession to the Non-Proliferation Treaty. So I don't know that Russia would be willing to uphold their end of that on Ukraine, but I don't know that Russia wants to take Ukraine over. I don't know that Putin wants to invade and just go ahead and take Ukraine as a whole. I think he would absolutely jump at the chance to put a pro Russia government in Ukraine. And that's just kind of based on Russia's grand strategy. And so you take a look at Russia's grand strategy. There's really three things for Russia's great strategy. And Luke kind of talked about one and the reasoning behind it. For a second, I'll get into that. So Russia wants to establish an uncontested sphere of influence across the territory of the former Soviet Union. So Roger and I kind of went back and forth a little bit on it. He's not looking to put the Soviet Union back together as it was, because that would require Russia to control countries. That would require Russia to, have the responsibility for, let's say the former Soviet socialist republics. Russia doesn't want that. What Russia wants to do is they want to influence those countries to, to do their bidding, but without all the responsibility that comes with that. And Russia wants to secure a seat at the table, of great powers in the ambiguous reasons, talking Middle East, Sub-Saharan Africa, and Russia wants to be viewed as a great power, like they were when, the Soviet Union was still around. And then containment, Russia wants to kind of constrain the US's pursuit of global interests. So you go back and you look. After the fall of the wall, the U.S. stood alone as the only world power, And we enjoyed that for a very long time. And, we let counterterrorism, take our focus, for the last 20 years. Well, what we come to realize now is that there's a polycentric world now. There are multiple centers of gravity in the world now. You have China. China is now, China's a global power. And it has to be dealt with. Iran is coming online. Maybe not I don't know that I count Iran as a global power. They're certainly a regional power. And then you have DPRK. So the U.S. doesn't get to run the table and the world order of things and dictate things, how things are going to go because they're the biggest kid on the block anymore. That's changed, and Russia saw that changing. And so, like, there's six elements, in Russia's grand strategy, that nest under those three. And I'll run through those real quick, and then we can bounce it around and talk about those. So the six elements, what Russia wants. Domestic instability and interstate war represent an increasingly integrated threat for which Russia must prepare. They have to deal with that internal security issue, like most communist states do. China being the same, their internal security, that's the security of the party. Russia will pursue a benign leadership role, in its immediate region to maintain its influence there. That's what we're seeing right now with Ukraine. They they have little need to develop an expeditionary military capability, and they're going to be focused on regional contingencies on its periphery. So, we're talking Georgia, Armenia, Ukraine, and others, and then from what I read, and this is coming, so I'll finish these and I'll tell you where I pulled some of this stuff from. So Russia's objective is not to weaken the West or Western institutions, and this is their strategy, right? This is what they are saying, not what's been pulled out of their deep dark secrets. They don't want to weaken the West and Western institutions. They want selective cooperation while kind of containing the West and their ambitions. And they want to, change our foreign policy behavior, which is, run around the world, trying to free the shit out of everybody. And then, they're pivoting, internationally, international politically and economically toward those new centers of power, specifically Brazil, India, China, the Gulf states, and the Asia Pacific region. So those are kind of what I found the six elements that nest within Russia's grand strategy. I don't know if you want to give us some of your thoughts on that, Luke, and then we can pick them apart one by one, or dive. You can give wave tops, whatever you want to do. It's your world. It's Burger King, baby.
Well, I'll have it my way and talk right this second. I think that the three of us, we talk about this quite a bit. And if you listen to what the 6 points that Josh made and kind of apply them to what's going on right now in Ukraine, what went on in Georgia, the wars in the Caucasus and in Grozny, Chechnya back in the 90s, I think it all kind of can make a little bit more sense as far as why Russia is doing what it's doing now. That said, in my opinion, of course, stop the expansion of NATO, create division within NATO, make it harder for NATO to counter Russia. If that is nested within those six, and that's very important, how much do you think it cost Putin to move, or the nation of Russia to mobilize that many troops, move them down to the area and just have them sit there? Because they could pull all those out, send them back to where they came, and Putin would have accomplished something by simply moving them there. And that is, you create a division within NATO. UK had to fly around Germany. Germany would not grant flyover status to any planes transporting anything, any military planes transporting anything to Ukraine from the UK and any other country. So that right there is a weakening of NATO. That's a success in Russia's eyes, big time success. So Putin's already gotten, further in his objectives by just testing the waters. If that's what he's doing, I'm not saying he could be just testing the waters right now, see what happens. Anybody with half a brain's like, well, geez, we got a president who is pretty, weak on so many levels. Putin sees that. Let's see how far we can push it. And, China's sitting there waiting in the wings. Like Roger said, which kind of brought us to this. I knew where Roger was going. He's like, you just wait till after the Olympics, bro. The South Pacific is going to be lit, son. So, I mean, everybody's watching. Putin is already, I think the three of us don't know whether he's going to invade or not. What I fear most, as far as any sort of war breaking out, is just a screw up. Some sort of screw up. Because, man, there's a lot of machinery moving around. There's a lot of stuff in the air. There's a lot of stuff floating around the Black Sea right now. A lot of trigger-happy folks. And, man, I'm worried about a screw-up. They shoot an airliner out of the air again. And, man, I fear that. I fear the quote-unquote leadership of Anthony Blinken, who we covered on earlier podcasts. I mean, this guy is just a disaster as far as decision maker and a strategic planner. When the State Department is taking front and center anytime on anything like this that could cause a war, I first of all, Russia's 3 steps ahead of them, because our diplomats are, by and large, there are some good ones. Ambassador Brent Hartley, who is now the State Department advisor to the Pentagon, great diplomat, great ambassador. But he's the exception, not the rule. And these people cannot plan outside of whatever they learned at Foggy Bottom about keeping things, status quo. And when you're playing a chess master, which is Russia, I mean, I don't want to make the chess checkers analogy, but it's perfect. What they teach at Foggy Bottom is ridiculous. And it's pathetic, whatever. So I'm afraid of the decisions that are being made, and I'm afraid of a mistake sending us into war. Because, man, Putin is 3 steps ahead of whatever we're talking about on this podcast. He'd listen to this, be like, you stupid bitches. That's not what I'm doing. But, I mean, Roger, if Putin pulled out now, I mean, is it a win for him?
Yeah, and I think you hit it on the head. And I'll even give some credit to Joe Biden on this one, where he said, I don't even think Putin knows what he wants to do. It's kind of the North Korean saber rattling. It's like, well, hey, let's move some troops. Let's start to mobilize a little bit. Let's move more and more up there. Let's see how far I can push this. I'm not even worried about the mistake, because we saw what happened with Crimea and the airliner shot down. I mean, what were the repercussions for that? Were there any? Zero. So I'm not even worried about the mistake, because I don't think this administration will take us into conflict. Not saying that they should, but the mistake doesn't bother me. I think it's a lot of what you're saying. It's like, hey, let me see how fast or how far I can push his envelope, and I'll just keep pushing, and let's see what shakes out of this thing. Maybe I invade, maybe I don't. Maybe I'm just able to take part of the region. Maybe there's some political agreement that we come to, or maybe I can just exert some more influence, in the capital there. I mean, I think there's a million different outcomes. I don't think I don't think a mistake is necessarily what I'm worried about. It just comes back down to, what is our response going to be? I kind of agree with Josh, where I'm like, hey man, we did a lot in Afghanistan over the years, right? I'm not talking about, when we went in, but obviously when the Soviets did. So we did a lot there to keep them and kind of give them their quote unquote, own Vietnam. And hopefully Ukraine doesn't come to that point. But there's a lot we can do with some aid. You just have to do it. You have to do it. You can't just sit back on the sideline and wait, unless you're just going to say, hey, Europe, handle your problem. And in that case, I think you're spot on, Luke, where, hey, you've already weakened, NATO. And that's already done anyway. I mean, with the Nord Stream 2 and the sanctions and by the way, man, you talk about hypocrisy. I mean, because the filibuster, man, those are Jim Crow era, tactics. And the Democrats used the filibuster to block the Russian sanctions. That's right. I forgot about that, huh? It's like, man, how do you? I know we're jumping all over the place, but how do you sit there and talk about? You literally said, the filibuster is equal to slavery, is what you said. and then to turn right back around and use the filibuster. It's like, wait a minute, weren't you arguing against the filibuster, but now you're for it or whatever? But no, I think, I think Josh, he hit a lot of that on the head. Russia, they'll never put the Soviet Union back together the way it was, right? But it is about that Russian influence and being the most powerful country in the region. Plus, that's a lot of conflict. I mean, that's a lot of conflict that I don't think the Russians are willing to go through. But hey, maybe you do get a pro-Russian government installed there. They're already, improving the relationship with Germany. You start controlling some of the energy around the area, like Luke said. Hey, you're weakening NATO. Well, now quickly, all of a sudden, Russia's a top tier superpower again. Whether they actually should be or not, it's all about influence, right? And what you can control over there. So I'll kick it back to Josh for his final thoughts. But I guess there'll be more to see coming up here in the next couple of weeks. And we talk about China with the Olympics. I mean, Putin is also aware of that, right? He's also aware that there's Winter Olympics going on in China. How far can I push this envelope? And I think you hate to see a mistake lead to all-out war between Ukraine and Russia. And I don't know. I mean, Luke and Josh, you're probably better versed this than I am. I don't know at what point the Ukraine is actually prepared and able to go to war against Russia. But that would be the biggest thing when you talk about the mistake is a round gets lobbed across the border, and now you have all-out war between the two, and things get hairy from there. But with the Olympics going on, the China situation, I mean, like you said, Putin's 3-4 steps ahead of at least Blinken. He knows that's going on as well, and he knows there's a lot of pressure on the administration. And right now, it doesn't seem like we're doing a whole lot. So, Josh, got some final thoughts on what we'll see here in the next couple of weeks.
I don't know what you're going to see in the next couple of weeks out of Ukraine. Barring what Luke pointed out. There's some accident. There's some you got some Spetsnaz guy that cuts off the wrong head or something. But I don't know if Putin's going to let's say invade Ukraine more than they did in 2014. And in 2014, Putin did not plan on annexing Crimea. When he did. You go back and look, and that was a target of opportunity when the Ukraine and the European Union, basically the European Union gave Ukraine, the take it or leave it ultimatum, and Ukraine said, all right, we're leaving it, and that left the door open for them to join NATO. And then, so you had that. So I don't know that, Russia was even really looking at annexing Crimea then anyway, until that happened. I think had Ukraine joined the European Union, I don't know that Putin moves on to I don't know if he moves into Crimea. So there's an interview with the ambassador, or not the ambassador, what am I talking about? The Finnish prime minister up in Finland. Everybody's been pushing, they want Finland to join NATO. They've rebuked it multiple times because they know, there's one thing that Putin will not allow. He will not allow NATO on his border. And, that goes back, you could take that all the way back to the 16th century, Russia, they are in fear and always have been of, being surrounded and being isolated, the besieged fortress thoughts. And so, she came out, and when she got done clubbing one night, and was like, nope, not joining NATO, not going to do it, because they know, she knows, like, hey, the second that we say we're going to join NATO, like, we're going to have little green men, in Helsinki, and they don't want that. So, and then everybody knows their historic ties to Russia anyway. So I don't know that Putin will invade. I think what we're going to see, we're going to see a lot of what we've been seeing. I think you're going to see a lot of the asymmetric balancing, and that they've done. For a long time. You take a look at Estonia in 2007 information warfare campaign against that. We talked about a little bit about in Georgia back in 2008. Crimea, the Donbass, even the election, interference, in our election in 2016, and then the political warfare that's going on in the Baltics, really since 2007, 2008 timeframe. They've continued to interfere in Lithuania and Latvia. and I think you're going to see that continue. And you take a look at the Russian military. The Russian military, like remember when Psaki was like, we got to get rid of tank divisions and go to strikers. Well, Russia started a lot of that too. Russia has been they've started hardening up again a little bit since 2016 ish. They're trying to armor back up a little bit, but it's not. They went from like 23,000 tanks prior to 2014 to they have about 3,000 tanks. Russia has about 3,000 tanks. You can't go around invading countries with 3,000 tanks in Europe. You just can't do it. You're going to get destroyed. But I will say, if they do decide to go, NATO's not going to be able to do a whole lot at the beginning anyway, because that Iadz bubble is going to go up. And once that Iadz bubble goes up, nothing's going into Eastern Europe. It's all going to have to stop in Spain, because that Iadz bubble, when you start looking at where it is, you start looking at Kaliningrad, the North Sea and everything, nothing's flying. Nothing's flying east of Berlin.
Tell everybody what an Iadz bubble is.
So Iadz bubble, it's an integrated air defense system, right? So you think your surface-to-air missiles, all your radars, everything. Russia, outside of China, Russia probably has, one of the most sophisticated Iadz, in the world. And once they flip the switch on that thing, this big electromagnetic bubble goes up around Russia and a lot of areas of Europe, and nothing's going to fly. And that includes, military aircraft. So if they do decide to do it, they're going to do it. They can do it. It's not going to be difficult for them to do. I don't think Putin wants to, and I think he gets what he wants without having to do it. So, as you guys pointed out, he's getting what he wants right now, by and large. And the economic sanctions that Joe Biden talked about, Russia has been busy building for the last 6, 8, 10 years. They've been busy, building relationships with other countries, traditionally non-Western states. So the economic sanctions that, okay, the U.S., we're not going to send you, whatever. Well, that's fine, because they're getting it from, the East. They're getting it from China. They're getting it from India. They're getting it from Pakistan. They're getting it from other countries. So it really doesn't matter. And so anyway, so that's what I have. I would have liked to have gone a lot more in depth on Russia's grand strategy. Maybe we'll save the rest for another episode. So I'll kick it over to Luke to give his final thoughts.
Well, yeah. I mean, I'm going to stick by what I said, I think, last week or the week before. I think it was, doesn't matter. I think that history will judge this as a pretty stupid time for both Russia and the U.S. There are voices out there, like I said a couple episodes ago, that are like, why on earth are we still fighting with Russia? Is it the 1950s? Is it still the 1950s? What's going on? Because the real threat is China, and that's why this is going to be seen as a stupid move by both the U.S. Establishment and by Putin. I think that we should radically shift our perspective on Russia. I know right now they're not friends, and it would take a lot to get them to be friends, to get us to be, allies. That may never happen. But, we could put in a series of, not treaties, but, trade agreements with Russia, so on and so forth, something about chips, we'll produce chips if you'll buy them. You don't have to buy them from China anymore. And, just a series of steps in the right direction toward getting them on the West's side against China, because I'm telling you, man, that's a train that is not going to stop. It's going to keep going, and the world is going to look a lot different in 20 years, a lot different. So that's, Yeah, I'd like to, we could talk for a long time. Like Josh messaged me. I was like, how far are you going to go back into Russia's history? Because we could go back to Catherine the Great. And he's like, not going to talk about history, but we could spend an entire episode, with Josh's words, we could spend an entire episode talking about the Russian Orthodox Church and how that affects things in Russia historically. I mean, it's a very interesting topic, mystery wrapped in an enigma type thing. So my final thoughts, I'll kick it to Roger. Couple things. Roger's background, those of you, it looks great. Looking good job, Roger, stepping it up. I got to work on mine. So head over to YouTube and check that out. Check out our Twitter. Check out Culper's Canteen Cup on Twitter, man. Josh is putting out some zingers lately, some really good ones, man. I think he's found a talent. I didn't realize Josh was so talented at Twitter, but he's putting out some good ones. Kurt Schlichter, I know you don't listen, maybe you do, I don't know, but thanks for shouting us out the other day. He's a solid dude. Check out Kurt Schlichter. He's a good guy. He's on a podcast a while ago. I said I was going to do it, try to do it every episode. For those of you in Texas, go to votetexas.org, get registered. Primaries are coming up. They're coming up quick. And one quick thing, very sad at the passing of Meatloaf. Meatloaf is one of those artists that if I don't know what I want to listen to, like, man, what am I in the mood for? I can put on Meatloaf, The Cars, or Queen. And he was always a go-to in his music. And real quick, shout out to Elaine, good friend of mine. She went to high school with Meatloaf. They were in the same class. Meatloaf also attended Lubbock Christian University, and I think it was their 40-year high school reunion. Meatloaf was there at the high school reunion, and he finally, after 40 years, told Elaine that he had a crush on her in high school and back in college. So for those of you, Elaine is my mother-in-law. So we always joke about it that, my wife could have been a Meatloaf spawn, But yeah, old Meatloaf had his mom was an elementary school teacher and just an all around kind of good guy. So I'll miss him. And Elaine, sorry, that the guy that had the crush on you, he passed away. So those are my final thoughts, Roger.
Yeah, it seems lately too that like a lot of famous people are dying. And I was talking to my wife about this the other day, and I wonder if this is all due to like the COVID and the lockdowns and all that stuff. Because you have a lot of these famous people that, they're always out and about and doing things, and then a large part of the country has been shut down for the last 2 years, so people have been stagnant, staying at home, getting less healthy, that type of stuff. And I just wonder if there's any kind of correlation with that. But couple of topics, a little bit different. The Arizona Democrats censured Kirsten Sinema. So she may have just gotten my vote because they censored her. So that shows that she's doing something right. I think she's been up there with Joe Manchin, and we've said it a couple of times to where she did not want to vote to get rid of the filibuster, Build Back Better. So I get it. She's a Democrat. Josh and I have gone back and forth with this a couple of times. It's like, hey, you know what? She might actually get my vote depending on who the GOP puts up in 2024. Because if it's somebody like Jeff Flake, I'll vote for Sinema, every day of the week. At least I know what I'm getting. I get it. It's politics, and they're politicians, and they're going to vote generally with their party. But I think there are certain things, certain lines that you just don't cross. And, she has proved, at least to me, with the filibuster piece and the Build Back Better, that she's doing what she honestly thinks is right. Which, of course, brings up, Mark Kelly, the next Senate race here in Arizona. Luke got some, quality one-on-one time with one of the other candidates, Craig. I don't know how you pronounce his name. Is it Britain or Britain? Anyway, this dude's a nut job, right? So go look him up on Facebook. It's, all revolution, 2.0, 1776 2.0. Can't talk about his platform. He's got some snarky little remarks here and there that are pretty entertaining or whatever. But I think, the one-on-one conversation, maybe one day we can get Luke to clean a little bit of it up and post some of it on our blog. But the one-on-one conversation that Luke had with him, going back and forth, probably at least a good hour. He is a little off, right? I don't even know if it's right or left side or whatever you want to call it, just a little off. The biggest topic that, over this last week, outside of what's going on with Ukraine and Biden and all that other stuff, I think it's as of 3 days ago. UK, no more mandates, right? They came out and said, hey, no more masks, none of that stuff. We're done. We're over this. Let's move forward. And now you've got the WHO and the CDC. Who would have thought it that natural immunity was more effective against the Delta surge than the vaccination was? Who would have thunk it, right? Like fifth grade science, sixth grade science. You got all those people out there, and we've ranted and about this stuff for the last 2 years now with COVID. And some of the stuff is like, it just doesn't make sense. So now what makes me wonder is how much farther do we go with our current lockdowns? You still have schools that aren't open, and the vaccine mandates. And of course, a lot of stuff is going through challenges. The mask wearing forever. I mean, I'm hoping that UK, being the leader of this thing and saying, hey, look, we're done with this stuff. Hopefully, the U.S. will follow suit. And it's kind of a sad position to be in because we really have seen the politicizing of healthcare and with the whole Rona and all that other stuff, where we used to be a leader in the world when it comes to this. But like a lot of other things that have happened, especially with this last year of the administration, it's when you're not leading, you're following. And right now it appears that we're following in a lot more ways than one. So with that being said, I do definitely want to give a quick shout out to Carlton Zeus. Again, intro music for those of us that listen to us on the podcast. We obviously don't play it on the YouTube, but check him out on Apple Music or www.carltonzeus.com. We also have a website still up. It is still up. We've paid the bills for another month. So culperscanteencup.com. Definitely check out the blog. We've got some pretty witty stuff up there. And then like Luke mentioned, hit up our Twitter, look at our Instagram, Facebook. Josh has been doing a pretty good job throwing some one-line zingers out there. So it's pretty entertaining to get you through the work week. So with that being said, it's going to do another episode for us. So keep your canteen cups tightly secured.